take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And we are coming to you maybe just a few minutes late. We usually try to have this thing up and running at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, but we had a couple-day trip to Memphis for work. Got back late yesterday afternoon, and we're kind of pinched for time with some other things. And so, fuck it, let's record in the morning, and then we'll just put it out as soon as we get done. So we apologize for that, but hopefully it's not going to be that late, and hopefully we didn't ruin your morning if it's the first thing you do when you get up on Fridays.
Well, we could have either done like a 20-minute podcast.
That's right.
Or give the MJF Ricky Starks promo the full time it deserves to talk about how brilliant it was. But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, because we would have had maybe 20, 30 minutes last week.
Yeah.
If that. So, yeah, we'll get there shortly. But, let's get into the week in WWE first. I have to admit that I didn't get to see a lick of SmackDown on Friday night, and I usually don't get to see Raw at all. So all the news this week's coming straight from Patrick on that one because I missed out.
So SmackDown, so I didn't watch Raw from this past Monday. I watched SmackDown last Friday. Obviously, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are continuing to kind of orbit each other. They had a tag team match, good match. The main thing I want to talk about from SmackDown was the awesomeness of Ricochet and Escobar from Friday night, the finals of the SmackDown World Cup. This was just a fantastic match.
I did see a lot of tweets about it, about how good that one was.
Yeah, Legado del Fantasma, I think is what their stable's called. I think I maybe have mentioned on this podcast before how much I wanted like a all Lucha Libre Mexican stable in AEW with like Andrade and Rush and all those guys. Well, that's what this is in WWE. I mean, Selena Vega looks like a star. Escobar looks like a star. Don't know who the other two guys are, but they look good in suits too. Obviously, they're playing second fiddle to the other two. Ricochet is a guy that I've always liked. I don't know if WWE has necessarily figured out the perfect way to present him, but it seems like they are honing in on his presentation.
Yeah, it feels like they're kind of finally trying to give him a push, because I was real into him and Aleister Black at the time because they both came up at the same time from NXT.
Yeah,
and they had them tagging for a little bit, which was a little awkward. But I don't think either one of them really got a fair push there. And then obviously they've just now, and maybe it's just because of Triple H, try to figure out exactly how to present him.
Yeah, and I mean you want you need another big time African American superstar. There's a void there in WWE for somebody to try to fill it. And when you talk about Ricochet, I mean just the moveset alone. I mean this dude is incredibly gifted in the ring in the way that very people who have ever stepped between the ropes have been. If you'll remember the first time he got introduced to a WWE audience, it was in NXT. He did the flip from inside to outside and landed on his feet, right? I mean, how many people can do that? And, he was Intercontinental Champion when Vince was still there. I mean, I don't even think the Intercontinental Championship was defended on WrestleMania, so that's how little it was thought about. Now, obviously, Gunther has taken the Intercontinental Championship to where it's been. Ricochet and Gunther have had a history with each other. But now, the second time around, this feels like a way bigger deal to the point where it closes out the show. Their stare down. And Escobar and Ricochet had fantastic chemistry. The spots they were doing, obviously they've wrestled before in Lucha Underground. I don't know. If you want to look at, what could a new style of WWE sort of look like? Because obviously we've talked about this so many times before. They cannot do the kind of breakneck, fast-paced, high-octane bumps the way that AEW can do because they have to wrestle the next night. And physically you're just incapable of doing that. But I think this is a version that they can do going forward. And, I mean, it was fantastic all the way around. So just wanted to mention that off the top before we got into some other stuff. Didn't watch Raw, read the results. On Raw, that seems like the big story is the Women's Championship. We got to put some challengers in line for Bianca. So they had a couple of triple threat matches. Looks like we may be getting Rhea Ripley versus Asuka.
Yeah, and I've seen some things this week about maybe Asuka returning or teasing her a return to her more sinister ways. I guess.
The gimmick she was doing in Japan. Yeah. So that could be really cool.
Yeah.
Austin Theory continues to be on that show, doing great work. So we're on the road to WrestleMania. There's speculation of buzz leading into the Royal Rumble coming up next month. Who's going to win it? Could it be Cody Rhodes? Could it be The Rock? Who knows? A good time in WWE. And before we get to AEW, didn't bring this up to you. Did you see the Sasha Banks rumors?
I saw that she's rumored to be at Wrestle Kingdom.
That's a big... So if that's true, the Sasha Banks, Mercedes Varnado to AEW is about... If she shows up at Wrestle Kingdom, that shit's going to hit the fan. Yeah. The speculation that she's going to show up in AEW.
Yeah.
Because, the last WWE pay-per-view was in Boston, her hometown. If she was going to come back to WWE, what better place to do it?
True.
And now to hear, not only is she not coming back to WWE anytime soon, but maybe she's rumored to show up in New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
And, she strikes me as a type of person, much like in the vein of a Bryan Danielson, that really sees professional wrestling as an art form and considers herself an artist. And in that kind of mold, much like the same way that Bryan Danielson has talked about he wanted to come to AEW because he could do things in this company that he couldn't do in the other one. Wrestling for 60 minutes, right? Bleeding. That was a big part for him. He wanted to be able to do that. I think AEW for Sasha presents some new opportunities. Obviously, this schedule is lighter. So if she has aspirations, like it sounds like she does, I mean, she's in The Mandalorian, to continue her acting career and be a bigger deal in Hollywood, this gives you more time to do that. Also, it would have to be exciting, I would be guessing, from her perspective, to, AEW they're the second biggest promotion in North America. But there's still levels that they could get to, right? And so, maybe the prospect of coming into a new company and helping to usher it into new heights is something that would be appealing to her as well. So
yeah,
it would be a much-needed another shot in the arm to that women's division. And credit to AEW. They have really taken – that was a big criticism that they've drawn as their treatment of the women's division. And, I mean, now with – you got Britt and Saraya and Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm and Jade Cargill. I mean, there were 3 women's matches on the pay-per-view last month that were 3 separate stories, right?
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
All good matches, too.
And all good matches, yeah. So you bring in a Sasha Banks or whatever she'll be in AEW. She might just be a real name.
It could be next level.
Yeah, that would be a huge get.
Yeah, for sure. So we were in Memphis Wednesday night, and we were able to watch Dynamite, and we've been a little critical of the show the last couple weeks, coming off of the pay-per-view and how they've handled the championship with MJF and a couple things, and we got a little bit of a late start, but we were able to watch it. They started off with the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, and Battle Royals to me, outside of the Royal Rumble where you get the big returns sometimes, are typically pretty uneventful for me because there's so much going on and production has kind of a hard time keeping up with things, and there's spots that they just don't go over that well because how do you really practice something like that? You can kind of call some spots, but I don't know. Not the greatest in the world, but it did set up, because Ricky Starks ended up winning, and it was a neat little finish between he and Ethan Page. But, so does he get 2 matches against MJF?
So, I'm going to be honest with you, I do not know what the stipulation of this Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal is. I don't know how it operates.
Yeah.
They haven't done a good job of explaining what this is, because the past 3 times that MJF has won the Dynamite ring, he hasn't gotten a title shot.
Right.
So I don't know why they're doing it now.
But, like, Ricky Starks has already got a shot at the title at Winter's coming next week. So does he just get the ring too? Like, they haven't really explained what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's for as good as this segment is, that's a glaring little hole of it.
Well, if y'all figure that out,
Yeah.
holler at us at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter, because I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I haven't figured that out.
All that aside, this is what we needed out of this show. Was we needed a face-off between MJF and Ricky Starks, because there's really been excuse me, no build to their match at Winter is Coming.
No.
But boy, did they pay it off in a big-time way.
So there are, and I've written about this before for the Alabama Take site, there are moments, and sports is really good at this, where you're watching something happening, and there's an energy to it. There's an electricity. And it makes you sit up a little bit straighter, and you go, oh, this is something that, like, there's a thing that's happening right now. Giannis Antetokounmpo last year, NBA Finals, closeout game, he drops 50, a 50-point double-double, and becomes a legend, basically, right? I mean, that's an NBA performance that goes up into the pantheon of all-time great performances. Like, if you have a grandkid that's an NBA fan, one day they're going to ask you about that. And, you know, sports all the time makes those moments. So what makes sports so great. Wednesday night, Ricky Starks had one of those moments. And this is his. We have talked about the massive amount of potential we've seen in Ricky Starks. If you will go back through some of our archives, we had a podcast titled The 45-Second Brilliance of Ricky Starks.
I'm going to beat your ass.
They'll beat your ass. So, like, and little pat on ourselves on the back. So Jamie Hayter and Ricky Starks have both gotten this massive amount of, like, groundswelling support. I feel like we were on them very, very early on this podcast.
Hey, we
and our
made
listeners.
it very clear that we are Team Ricky.
We've been Team Ricky for a while. So how satisfying it is to finally see that potential be realized Wednesday night. Because MJF hit him with some heavy shots that would have knocked a lot of other people out. The Pebble thing
Yeah.
was just, I mean, brilliant.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I'll send you back.
Dollar Store Dwayne Johnson.
Dollar Store Dwayne, I'll send you back to wrestling on YouTube where you belong. The Pebble thing got over so well that they're in Ricky's hometown of Austin, and the crowd starts chanting Pebble.
Yeah.
And you're watching it in the moment, you go, okay, well, he's got to come back with something. And then just the brush pass, shoulder to shoulder, right, hits him.
Yeah.
Ricky grabs a microphone, well, maxi pad, and you go, okay, he's got
Okay,
it.
yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, he's in.
And a great contrast of styles to the way they do promo. Like, we've talked about how sometimes with wrestlers you can see the performative aspect of wrestling kind of bleeding through a little bit. Like, they have catchphrases they're trying to get through, or they're, you know, Cody Rhodes was really bad about this, where you could tell that they had, like, parts in their promos they wanted to do something, so they do, like, these dramatic turns to the cameras and stuff, and it feels...
Yeah, Cody was
there's a
real
way that it
always
feels kind of phony, and then there's a way where you can feel... I think MJF is good about this, where even his performance feels polished, right? With Ricky, none of that felt performative. Every single bit of it felt real. And I think his promo was even aided by the fact that he kind of was stumbling over himself, right? Like, he was so jacked up on this energy. The veins popping out. I mean, he said a line like, I'm going to stomp an asshole into you, right? That's not a good line.
Yeah.
Separated from the promo, right? But the way he's delivering it, and he's in his face, and he's going back to back to back, you could just feel like
He's still
this is
fresh
a
off
star.
a match, yeah. So
Yeah.
he's you know, he's still trying to catch his fucking breath because he's been throwing people out of the ring for 15 minutes.
Yeah, and this is, you know, what a moment for AEW to be in, where the ratings have kind of dwindled a little bit, and we're kind of in uncharted territory with AEW. It's a testament to AEW and to Tony Khan to, like, not panic, right? Because if you think about all the champions that AEW has right now, outside of Samoa Joe, they're all AEW originals. And I think there would be a great temptation to...
Well, and Chris Jericho.
Well, yeah, he's Ring of Honor. I guess it's Ring of Honor as much as AEW now as anything, right? But, I mean, you talk about MJF. You talk about Jade Cargill, Jamie Hayter, The Acclaimed, Samoa Joe being the outside guy. But Samoa Joe's not really, to me, I don't think of him as a WWE guy. So I think with other people, there might be this temptation to where, the ratings are slipping. Let's put the belt on Bryan Danielson. Like, let's do Danielson Moxley. Let's do these big names that came from the other company. And AEW's just kind of be like, nah, we're just going to kind of do this thing. And we have 2 AEW originals inside the ring, and this is our main event program. And not only does it feel right, it feels exciting. Like, there's a buzz about it.
Yeah. They're clearly not going to take the belt off of MJF next week, but I think we'll get a banger of a show, of or a match for sure on that one. And I think they'll start a long-term feud.
So whatever your plans were, if your plans were after Winter is Coming, that you were going to turn right around and do MJF versus Bryan Danielson, personally, seeing what you saw from Ricky Wednesday night, I think you have to put those plans on hold. I think this has to be Ricky Starks versus MJF at least up until Revolution. It was that big of a moment. And I think wherever you had, if in Tony's office he's got like a big whiteboard or whatever, and he's got it separated by like main event, mid card, lower card, whatever, and he's got the names on there. And under the main event, it's like Omega and Moxley and Danielson. After Wednesday night, you now have to take Ricky's name and throw it in that main event scene and be like, this is one of my top 6 guys on the roster.
Yeah, it's times like this. I saw a headline last night that said that, with some of the shifting roles that happened late last year or late this year in AEW and expanded responsibilities and stuff, headline was something to the effect of, Tony Schiavone is now in charge of certain things that Tony Khan doesn't want to be tasked with or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So clearly Tony Khan trusts Schiavone, and it seems like he's kind of leaning on him as a right-hand man, but like, at what point does Schiavone just get in his ear and be like, hey, this is the move?
Well,
if Khan didn't figure it out for himself,
and that's the thing, like, you don't need anybody to tell you now. Like that the crowd.
Yeah, they told you.
The internet after Wednesday has told you what they feel about Ricky Starks.
I mean, you just listen to us, and we be hashtagging Team Ricky.
Go back and watch our archives. I mean, we're at this point we're 2 for 2, right? For people that were, we kind of thought might be stars, but we were pushing really hard, and now one's the women's champion and one has got just had maybe an all-timer of a promo Wednesday night to where when Ricky becomes the world champion eventually.
And not for nothing, because we kind of skipped over this, but that damn spear he put on Ethan Page at the end of the match, I thought he was about to kill that man.
And on MJF, right? I mean, he hit MJF so hard, and they probably gimmicked the shoes. MJF's shoes went flying.
That's
right?
true.
And, we gave a lot of praise for Ricky, and he's been getting it a lot on the internet, and it's much deserved. MJF deserves a lot of praise, too. If you were going to keep this guy heel, this is the way you use him.
Yeah, he got a lot of boos the other night.
And it was smart to do this in Austin, where the crowd's going to love Ricky so much that there's not going to be any kind of confusion about what to do with MJF, right?
Yeah.
But MJF is now in the Ric Flair role from the 80s, where Ric Flair is so established. Now is the time to start making guys, right? So, we know what Ric Flair did for Sting. Sting and Ric Flair had a rivalry, and it turned Sting into an ultra superstar.
An icon.
An icon. And this is how you go about using these guys.
Yeah, this definitely, like, you kind of looked over Wednesday night when we were watching this, and we're like, okay, this is what this show needed. Like, this was the build. They kind of put all their eggs in one basket, and it could have flopped. But, I don't think either one of us would have really thought that you give these 2 dudes one shot and it's going to flop. But, like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but this is why you're in the main event scene. You know what I mean? Like, if Ricky flops in that moment, then Ricky's not a main eventer. You've seen what you needed to see. But, the potential is there. And so anytime there's potential, what the big question is like, okay, will it be realized at some point? And we see this a lot in sports too, right? There are guys that come out of high school, highly touted recruits, and they do nothing at the collegiate and professional level.
Yeah.
So, you actually have to realize that potential at some point. And fucking Wednesday night, that was what happened. He needed a home run. He needed a last-second shot, and he killed it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think he's not going to win the title next Wednesday, nor do I think he should.
No.
But just the fact that you have people online being like, oh, Ricky should be the champion now, that's what you want. So now you have another roster of another stable member of your main event scene, up there with your Omegas and your Moxleys and Danielsons, and you got another guy to build off of.
So y'all never forget, hashtag Team Ricky.
Team Ricky.
Team Ricky. And so I didn't write this down. I want to move on. I didn't write this down for our outline, but at some point they kind of had a pre-tape segment with William Regal's send-off, and it was Tony Schiavone was like, hey, we filmed this a few weeks ago and the chance of blah, 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 blah. And I don't even remember what the stipulation was. He was like, we filmed this in case whatever. But it was Regal's send-off, right? Where he was like...
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts on that.
Look, now that we have all the reports, right? William Regal wanted to go back to NXT, or WWE wants to work with his son. It seems like Tony is graciously letting him out of his contract because he's going back to WWE strictly in a backstage role, not an on-air character. I think it reflects well on Tony. People have talked about the kind of boss that he is, and how he really seems to care about the individual people, and so it looks good on that respect. This is about as good as you could have done it, I guess, all things considered, right? Giving Regal a sort of a send-off that's like the Grand Master teaching you one final lesson on his way out before, like he's like a fucking Yoda or something in Star Wars, right? Right before Yoda died, like he just teaches Luke Skywalker, whatever. And it's fine. I'm ready to move on for it now. It was nice that you gave MJF the kill, I guess, because he can now have that in his belt. The question is going to be, where does Blackpool Combat Club go from here? I think that's the bigger question.
Yeah, because it was setting it up as a way to keep the Blackpool Combat Club together, but I don't know that they'll really stick together. There's been some dissension.
Well, Claudio and Jericho have the match coming up tomorrow, where if Claudio loses, he has to join Jericho Appreciation Society. I think the way to go is to have Claudio lose and have to join the JAS. I think he becomes way more interesting if he's in JAS. But we look at what we've talked about, how well Jake Hager's been doing. Like,
he fucked up that Conrada off the top rope.
Well, Claudio right now has been, outside of when he first debuted and got the win at Blood and Guts, has he done anything of note?
No.
He's kind of just been in the background with his arms crossed, looking tough.
Yeah.
While Moxley and Danielson have all the shine. Yuta, can we say that Yuta's been elevated since he's been in Blackpool Combat Club? He's had moments.
Yeah, he had the Pure Championship for a little bit.
But, it's fizzled out to almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, because he was getting a pretty good push.
Yeah, and that momentum seemed to die out.
Yeah,
and so having Claudio still be a babyface, but have to be a part of this group of clowns could make for some interesting storytelling.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have that going on with Matt Hardy too in the firm.
Well, Matt Hardy doesn't. He's not on TV.
True.
He was there Wednesday night, but it wasn't anything.
Yeah.
And AEW repeats stories all the time.
That's true.
So
this would be a little more high profile one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like the firm might have their sights set on Jungle Boy or Jack Perry, judging out what came out of the Battle Royal.
Yeah, they called him Jungle Jack Perry in the intro to the Royal the other night.
Yeah. So it looks like that might be something that they're setting up down the road. So, we have some other stuff that we could do for the firm so that we're not highlighting on the same story that we could potentially be telling with Jericho and Claudio.
Yeah.
But
So it was a little send off for Regal, way to kind of end that story. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any other thoughts. I think you kind of touched on it. Like,
I think the reports that some dirt sheets were saying that like Regal didn't feel appreciated in the locker room, and like the younger talent didn't really respect his opinion. I think all that's a bunch of horse shit, personally. I think there's a narrative out there that some websites like to run with when it comes to AEW, and there are some that are very anti-AEW and some that are very pro-AEW. And, you would have to be quite the dumbass to have somebody like William Regal come into your locker room and not ask that guy for advice.
yeah.
So I think all that is, and I think he even himself or somebody in his camp was like, no, that's not true at all. So,
Yeah.
but he'll go back to WWE, and kudos to him. He deserves happiness. He's been a legend in this business for a while.
Yeah, and like you said, it says a lot about Tony Khan to be like, yeah, you can have an out,
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I mean,
Appreciate you.
And honestly, what else were you going to do with William Regal?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of did the thing, and then you had your ultimate heel put a stop to him. And, I mean, you explained it about the best as you could. There's probably a more elegant way you could have done it. But all things considered, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. So next up, TNT Championship, Darby Allin versus Samoa Joe. And this was interesting. Darby Allin took a hard fall out of the ring. He went through the ropes trying to hit Joe. Joe just walks out of the way. The
vintage Joe walking away from guys diving on him is the greatest spot. I love that so much. It just proves that Samoa Joe's just like the smartest professional wrestler that ever lived.
I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I honestly thought they'd let Darby get in a little bit more offense, but he just ragdolled that man.
Yeah, and I mean, Darby is good from fighting underneath, right? And Darby knows his character so well, where it's just he can't suplex these guys, right? So it's punches, it's kicks, he physically has to throw his entire body at the guy, right? But no, he shouldn't be getting off. And this is Samoa Joe. Like, it's the king of television, right?
Yeah.
And already in one match, does it not feel like Samoa Joe's TNT title reign has been more interesting than Wardlow's?
Yeah.
And he's had one match. He's defended it one time.
I mean, and Joe's so fucking good with the microphone, too, though.
Yeah. And so let's keep both of these titles on Joe. And I don't think it needs to be Wardlow. Like I think I might have mentioned last week. There was some talk. If you had asked us 6-7 months ago, do we think Wardlow could be a main event star? I think we both would have said yeah. The jury's still out for me at this point. I don't know. Because we saw what Ricky Starks did Wednesday, right? You think Wardlow can do anything like that?
No, I mean, Wardlow can do a lot in the ring. I just don't think he's there with the mic yet.
And that's the biggest. In some ways, that is the bigger part of the equation, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, Wardlow gets the pop for his physicality, like his, man that big going off the top ropes, over the top ropes, through the ropes, like, and just like the way he, when he commands the room when he's standing on the damn ropes, like.
I just don't believe him when he opens his mouth.
Yeah, it's not quite there. For all the praise we put on him early in the year, I don't know that he's there yet.
Right. And so, we know Samoa Joe is there. I mean, Samoa Joe's had a 20-plus year career for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So let's give the belt to him, and because we need interesting television to be happening every week. And so, yeah, he ragdolls the shit out of Darby, and Wardlow came out and he made the save, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'll do Samoa Joe and Wardlow again, and they'll probably have a good match. But, I mean, you want to talk about believability factor. I mean, everything about Samoa Joe, every time he speaks.
Yeah.
He really does feel like he's going to kill somebody, right? But, like, kudos to Darby too, because he's had like 2 back-to-back little vignette segments. I think he had one on Rampage and last week on Dynamite. He just knows what his character is, and they do a really good job in portraying his character. Because that promo, he's not even looking at the camera, right? He's looking at the mirror. The camera's from behind him. Dark, moody, brooding. Like he's got it down. So Darby's going to be fine. He's going to be one of those guys where, you know, anytime you need a little spark, you can give him a little 2-3 month build.
Yeah.
And he can be right back. He can be challenging for a world title in that amount of time. He can be challenging for the TNT title. And then you have that caveat of he has his own match, right? He's never lost a casket match in AEW.
True.
So he's got that little thing, too, that you can always do. So
He did get a nice coffin drop on Joe the other night.
yeah, and then he got murdered on the trucks of the skateboard.
Oh, God. Jesus, I almost forgot about that.
And that's also, like, kudos to Darby for being like, I'll take these bumps and make you look like a monster. You know? That there's a skill set in that, too.
Yeah, he did a job.
That's why he's here for a good time but not a long time. You know? He's not going to last. So let's enjoy it.
I don't know if have I ever mentioned this on the podcast? I feel like I tweeted it at one point. But my son pointed out about a year ago, he was like, Darby Allin looks like if Bart Simpson came to life.
Yeah, a lot of people have made that comparison. Yeah, yeah.
And that is funny as shit to me.
If like Bart Simpson came to life and was like really big into emo music.
Yeah.
Like had a My Chemical Romance tattoo and all that stuff. Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, that was good. And landing on those goddamn trucks at the end. Shoo. When he grabbed the skateboard, I was like, this don't end well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So next up, Claudio and Wheeler versus Garcia and Jake Hager. One of the best spots. It was going right over my head. I missed it, and you just went, "My man's got a backup." And
he got a backup hat.
He pulls a backup hat out of the back of his trunks. I love it.
Tries to give it to Claudio.
And shout out to Jake Hager's hat on Twitter. I think it's I think that's the correct handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake Hager's hat. That's funny. I saw that the other night.
So it's like, see, that's what I mean. That is a thing that if Claudio joins the JAS, he can have a thing like that. You mean to tell me you're not gonna think it's funny as shit if Jericho makes Claudio and Hager tag team, and he makes Claudio wear a purple hat?
Yeah, because he almost put the hat on the other night.
Like, come on. That's great. Like, we need different... All these notes. AEW can't be super serious wrestling all the time. It has to be able to play different notes. And for a guy like Claudio, he has to be able to play different notes if we're going to see him... I mean, we're probably not going to see him progress in his career at this point. He's in his 40s. I mean, he kind of is what he is. But, you know, much like Kane back in the day had a run with Team Hell No with Daniel Bryan. Like, and that's a memorable arc in his career. Like, you could do something similar with Claudio with this dumbass purple hat thing, you know? So I'm down for it. The match was fine. I mean, Claudio and Yuta get the win, which probably means they're going to lose. They'll both lose Saturday because that's how it happens. Much like how Ricky Stark got the upper hand on MJF, he'll lose next week. Like, whoever goes over before the pay-per-view, that's who's probably going to lose. And 99% of the time in wrestling history.
Yeah.
So
You're right. Yeah, so Claudio and Wheeler get the win. Like you just said, like, which means they're doomed in the next match. But there wasn't, to me, this wasn't like super memorable. It had its moments. It had, Claudio almost putting on the hat.
yeah.
Jake coming up with a second hat. That shit was funny.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they just leaned into it.
Yeah, this is right out of the Jericho playbook. This is Jericho 101. Find an item, get it over. I mean, that man's gotten over a plant, a list, a scarf, a suit.
So do you think that it was just, hear me out, like, the whole thing was he was trying to give Garcia this hat, and Garcia was like, no. Do you think that they meant for this to happen, or do you think that it was just of how funny that initial comment when Jake Hager was like, I like this hat? Like, and maybe that people just thought that shit was, because I remember thinking that shit was funny, because I think I hashtag,
yeah,
I like this hat. And from then on, every time he's said it. But do you think it was supposed to be a thing, or do you think that it was just like, it happened and they watched it back and they were like,
Well, they were all wearing the purple hats, right? If I remember the spot correctly.
were they?
I think so. I think they were wearing because they came out in all purple for a big match.
Okay, maybe they were.
And then when they were trying to give the hat, none of them had the hat on. They were trying to give it to Garcia.
Yeah.
And Garcia knocked off. I think Hager just picked up. I don't think he said anything. I think he just picked up and put it on.
I think he said, I like this hat. I could be wrong.
He could have said that. Yeah, but that's probably a thing where, like, Jericho heard it and, like,
It's like, well, this is
Matt Menard, and it was like, oh, yeah, that shit's funny.
Yeah.
Let's just keep running with it. And then you run with it. Well, you do the shit like it's so easy, right? You post pictures on Twitter. You're like, oh, does it get a reaction? Okay, it's getting a reaction. Okay, let me try it on TV. Okay, shit, it's getting a reaction on TV. All right, now we got something.
Yeah.
You know, Twitter is a very good testing ground for a lot of little stuff that you want to do in wrestling.
Yeah. And I don't follow a lot of wrestlers on Twitter or Instagram. There's a couple, like I follow Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor because his dog. I think his dog. He's funny as shit. Do you follow him? Well, you're not really on Instagram.
Yeah.
But his Instagram is funny because he just like posts. He's like, look at this asshole. And he's got this little fucking like 6-pound fluffy white dog.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But yeah, I don't follow a lot on Twitter either. So I don't keep up. I mean, I see some retweets. I mean, there's a few that we follow on the podcast Twitter. But I really only get on it like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
As we've said, we are terrible at social media, and we apologize for that. Just rolling with that, totally forgot a Twitter prompt of the week again this week. So we apologize for that. We can't really say it's a regular thing because I forget about that shit about once every 3-4 weeks. So we'll try to keep that up as much as we can. But yeah, it's kind of weird when we have to go on these work trips because I just get all fucked up, like, and just nothing. I can't keep my head right about what we're supposed to be doing and when. So, last match of the night, the Acclaimed versus FTR. This was a good one. It's just weird to me that a team as good as FTR didn't win. I understand. I get it. But it still seems weird to get a pin on FTR.
So when they came out on Rampage, there was the Gun Club was also out there, and there was another tag team out there, right? I don't remember who it was.
Seems right.
And then Billy Gunn was like, no, we said the best, and then FTR's music hit, and they came walking out. So at that point, I was like, oh, Wednesday night, they're going to do a smosh finish where, because AEW doesn't do a lot of run-ins and interferences in matches, the Guns are going to run in, cost FTR the match or whatever, right? Or it ends in a disqualification. No, didn't do that. They just had the Acclaim roll up FTR. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, why? In retrospect now, why would we do that?
I would have accepted if the Guns ran in and fucked shit up.
Yeah, because then you have you could play it off. Acclaim being like, we didn't know that we couldn't see it happen. We'll run this thing back. FTR being like, fuck, we are the best tag team, but these stupid assholes cost us the thing. Now we're gonna go kick their ass.
So now you got the Acclaim take the L, and then they fucking scissor the Acclaim, or not? That's not that. The FTR takes the L, and then they fucking scissor the Acclaim like in the ring, like.
But I'm fine. They're both baby faces. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but
they're babyface tag teams.
Though.
What you would have in that situation, and the way you book it better, you have an interference happen, and then you have FTR plus the Acclaimed get the momentum back, and they clear out the ring of all the heel tag teams. Then they fucking scissor, and then you can have the Guns interrupt on the microphone and be like, you think that's funny? I got a message here.
Yeah.
And they do it on the ramp instead of in a video package, and they pull the thing out for the double dog collar match, because that's all this was to get to, right? You want to get to, you got to have something to sell your pay-per-view on Saturday, Ring of Honor, and so a double dog collar match between FTR and the Briscoes is a thing to do it. Now, it kind of sucks that, the Briscoes can't be on AEW television to do this for themselves, right? Or to just be a part of the roster. Because because that would be another high-profile tag team you add to that division. But, yeah, I don't know. In retrospect, I don't know why you want to cut FTR off like that when they have so much momentum going for them. Not to say that you take the belts off the Acclaimed, but, you know, you don't do a lot of disqualification finishes in AEW. And so to do one every once in a while to kind of protect everybody that's involved in the match is not a bad thing. It's a tool that you can utilize sparingly and effectively.
Yeah. So while you were talking just then, I looked up the card for Winter is Coming, and I feel like there's probably some stuff missing, or they'll add some couple things. So House of Black is in action. It doesn't say versus who, but they kind of been setting up House of Black versus Best Friends the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so it could be that, I guess.
And then match 4 or the best of 7 between the Elite. This is the Elites versus Death Triangle, and then MJF versus Ricky Starks for AEW World Championship and Dynamite Diamond Ring.
Okay.
So I guess they just were like, instead of having 2 matches, we're just gonna lump this ring in with that. So that, if this site is correct, then that kind of answers our question from earlier. And then Jamie Hayter versus Hikaru Shida for the Women's Championship.
That'll be a good match.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good-ass card.
Yeah.
Right there.
I mean, if you'll remember, was it last year that was Hangman and Danielson? They went 60 minutes. Was that at Winter's Coming? I feel like all the winter is comings from AEW have been, like, the main events have always knocked it out of the park. I think Hangman and Danielson last year was the 60-minute draw.
That sounds right.
So yeah, it'll be a good card, you know, for having to be on television and having to deal with commercial breaks and shit like that. So, you know, the big questions will be: does MJF and Ricky Starks keep it going after next Wednesday? I guess that's the main. Is this now the new program, or are we gonna shift gears into MJF and Danielson, because that will be next?
Because there were 3 that we kind of figured, and then he actually basically said as much a week or so ago on the mic. We were like, okay, well, they could put him up against Starks, they could put him up against Danielson, and then at some point do the Kingston feud. And he basically those are the 3 that he called out, right?
Right.
So I initially figured they would do the Starks thing, then they would bring Starks back later in the year, where you could have right at the end of the year, right, do Starks again. But I don't know, man. I think you might be right. Like it might be bad to abandon it this early.
Yeah, because I mean, both these guys are white hot right now.
Yeah, and they, after they had Starks get the shit beat out of him by Hobbs, they kind of did him dirty for a week or 2, and then they started building him back up. So it'd be kind of dirty to shit on him again at this point, right?
I mean, he has an underdog element to him. So, like, we're not saying he needs to beat MJF at the end of this feud initially. Now, you might could have switched gears, and Wednesday night could have convinced you, if you were going to have an Eddie Kingston take the belt off MJF, maybe you do circle back around and have Ricky Starks be the one to do it. But I just don't think you risk ruining the momentum of Ricky if you just have him get beat Wednesday and he falls back into some other kind of program. Because I think these 2 guys have good chemistry, and they're good enough on the mic that you can have similar moments to Wednesday happening. And if it happens over the course of 3 months, say we make it all the way to Revolution in March next year, and the main event is MJF versus Ricky Starks. Again, because you can do things in the middle, right? In the second match, MJF Ricky Starks, you can do a dusty finish. You can have Ricky Starks, holy shit, he fucking pinned MJF. What the fuck? But then the referee comes out and reverses the decision, right? There are things like that you can do to help build him up, and then you can have Revolution be the thing, and MJF beats Starks, and then he moves on to Danielson or whatever, whoever it's going to be. And then, if you wanted to circle back, you could circle back around. Particularly if they have a kick-ass match Wednesday. hey, it's the 1 year anniversary. Ricky Starks versus MJF. This time you're gonna leave. I'm the guy. Because at that point, the MJF to WWE shit's gonna be all over television.
That's
at that
gonna be
point.
insufferable.
So you can have Ricky be like, I'm the guy here that's been busting my ass. I'm AEW. I'm gonna take this thing from you.
Yeah. Yeah, he even said that the other night. He's like, well, you were off for 3 months. He's like, I was here fighting my ass off every week.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I at this point, I think that's going to get us for the week. Sorry we don't have a Twitter prompt or Facebook prompt of the week. I think I'm all out of thoughts except for it's about that time of year where somebody going to win a match in WWE. And then they're just going to start pointing at the WrestleMania sign.
We're at that time. It's sign pointing season. Here we go. We're kicking it up.
For some reason, I always think of Charlotte Flair because it seems like she's the one that does it the most. But just real slow motion.
Yep.
Just a point.
Where the camera's low.
And a stare.
And it's looking up. Yeah.
And you just hold that pose where I'm just pointing.
And then they go to black.
Yep.
Yep.
We're nearing that time.
It's getting close. Just real quick, if you had a Royal Rumble prediction winner, who is it?
I don't know, man. You know, we've talked about it. Could be Cody. Could be The Rock if they bring The Rock in, and that's how they introduce him back into SmackDown. But that would be weird. Like, The Rock don't need to win a Rumble to get a shot at
No, he's
his
The Rock.
cousin. Yeah.
The Rock just comes in and says, hey, I'm going to have a challenge.
You don't need a setup for that storyline. You just be like, yeah, dog, this bloodline runs through me. Like,
right.
You know, I did this shit 20 years ago.
My prediction is going to be Cody Rhodes. I want it to be, and it should be, Sami Zayn. But I think Sammy will be part of the final 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think there's another way you can do that Sammy story, too. I mean, we've talked about all the ways they could do that. Cody looks ripped right now. Have you seen any pictures of him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be Cody.
Here's my only hesitation with Cody. We know what Cody looks like when he's got the ball, right? We saw it in AEW. It's the convoluted promos. It's the United States versus UK weigh-ins that go one of the worst segments all time in wrestling. Like, we kind of know what that looks like.
Look, not for nothing, but I like Cody's promos in AEW.
At the end, though, they were all over the place. His story was so disconnected from what was happening on the rest of the show. Now, in WWE, where, you know, things are a little bit tighter and more scripted, maybe he does excel in that environment and he'll be great. I mean, obviously there is no doubt that he was one of the hottest acts in WWE when he left, but also a lot has changed since he was last seen on WWE TV. And Sami Zayn has, even still, like, you just watch it, what are they chanting? It's just fucking Usi. They're chanting Sammy Uso. Like, he's cracking everybody. He's the most entertaining thing on that program. So, I don't know. It should be Sammy, but I think it will be Cody. I think you will see Roman defend both nights, both titles. And I would say Roman probably beats The Rock and loses the next night to whoever is the Royal Rumble winner. Also, if they do Money in the Bank at WrestleMania, which it sounds like they're going to do, that is also an X factor out there. You know? You don't change it back to WrestleMania, or like the first time it goes back to WrestleMania, you want to make a statement with it, right? Either in who wins it, or, you know, do they do a Seth Rollins 2.0?
What if they did like?
Does Rollins win the Money in the Bank and cash in again at WrestleMania and have 2 moments where he steals titles from Roman?
Or I mean, I'm just throwing shit against the wall to see if it sticks. What if KO wins Money in the Bank, Sammy wins one of the titles off of Roman, and then you could have a 3-month thing of leading up to when's KO going to try to get his shot versus Sammy.
You could do that. That's a thing.
I like KO a lot.
But yeah, it's all there's a lot of balls up in the air. Because the biggest question is who is going to dethrone Roman.
Yeah.
Because everybody, us included, think it's going to happen at WrestleMania.
It's got to be Sammy. Listen, we've said this. We said this a couple of shows. Don't fuck this up, Hunter.
Yeah.
Come on. This is your time to make a statement.
I mean, yeah, there's a million different ways you could go. I would love to be a fly in the room as they're discussing this. But if you hear WWE talk about it, they already know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That's the reports that have been. These plans have been solidified. We know exactly how we're going to do this. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
We'll see. I guess that's going to get it for this week, unless you got any final thoughts on anything.
No, that's it.
So y'all holler at us on Instagram and Twitter at Alabama Slam Pod. We now have a Facebook page as well. Just look us up there. I think it's just the Alabama Slam Podcast. And we're part of a network of folks that got several other podcasts going and writers. Patrick's been writing for the AlabamaTake.com for most of the last year. He's putting the brakes on that for a little bit to focus on some fiction writing. But we've got a bunch of podcasts with some friends and family over there. There's a Taking It Down podcast, weekly pop culture podcast. Then there's Check Your Shelf, a monthly book podcast. I've got a podcast with a couple friends called We Are a Star War. Clearly that's about Star Wars. Weekly sports podcast, Taking on Sports. And I think that's it right now. Maybe I don't think I missed anything. Go follow the Alabama Take if you want to keep up with all those other podcasts and writings, essays and stuff throughout the week. We got podcasts releasing damn near every day of the week through our little network. And you can get Alabama Slam shirts at tpublic.com. Just search Alabama Slam over there. Or I think the link is in our bio on Instagram. Yeah, man, y'all holler at us. We'll try to get back on the prompt next week. Should be fun next week with winners coming. Hopefully we'll have a pretty good show intact. And yeah, man, we'll holler at y'all next week.
Later, guys.